Hi. We are going to be starting on the winter block collection. I've got 6 in this set, just like with the autumn collection. I figured that was a pretty good number. The spring collection was 12. I think it was like 10 or 12 blocks. I think it was 10. And I think that was a little bit excessive. So I think 6 is the sweet spot. So that's what we're doing again this time. For the winter collection, it's going to be made up of various different like wintry scenes, obviously. I had so many ideas and so many things I was inspired by from going through Pinterest, so I was sort of like overwhelmed. But I think I've selected 6 images that I feel are really nice. Let's get started. For the first block, I started out with the design I was the most particularly excited about, the herding sheep block. I found the main reference image on Pinterest and fell in love with it instantly, and I knew I had to use it as a base for something. Combined with various other images of sheep and fields and a few border collies, I had a pretty good set of pictures to work with. For each block, if the reference image isn't one that I've taken myself that I want to copy directly, I try to have multiple images to work with to use as references when building my paintings and deciding what elements I want to include and how. I figured this piece was the best to start with, as the color palette is very simple: white, black, brown, and nude. And I honestly didn't think these sheep would be too complicated to paint until I started and realized it's going to take a lot longer than I thought. If it starts to seem like I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, that would be because I am. It's a technique called ruin it and then fix it, where you repeatedly ruin and fix your piece until you either give up entirely and put it in a storage somewhere never to be touched again, or finally reach a place where you feel you can live with it looking that way. Every artist applies this technique to everything they paint. It's truly the foundation in which most kinds of art are built. I don't make the rules, I just have to live by them. I signed up for it when I picked up my first paintbrush, and it's just how I have to live now. Anyway, sarcasm and jokes aside, I will be doing a lot of ruining and fixing throughout this video, and I have to say, I really think this might be the worst case of having to fix things and change things and do stuff over again of any block batch I've ever done. Every single block suffered from this, an unprecedented amount. There's always at least one block that I struggle with or that takes more time than the others, but this time all of them were that block, and it stretched out the time this collection took by quite a bit longer than I had planned. You'll see that unfold as we go. Oh my god. The head's too small. Shit. I decided to take on a more impressionist style for the sheep in the distance, as I really couldn't be bothered to do the tiny details. My detail brush gets worn out very quickly when doing these blocks, as despite them being sanded down to a smooth surface, the wood is still very rough on brush bristles. I was impressed with how well this little brush has held up. Like, it's gone through 21 blocks so far, give or take, in the last 2 months as I'm recording this voiceover in mid-December, and it's still chugging along okay. But because the bristles are beginning to get worn and frayed, it makes doing details kind of difficult. So at the time of filming this, I was trying to avoid doing more detail work than necessary in order to ensure that my brush would be able to do the important details for a little bit longer before I'd have to replace it. I didn't know that Michael Bublé did music like this.
Michael Bublé?
Michael Bublé.
Michael Bublé?
Sure.
From the commercials?
Yes. I thought he only did like jazz music and Christmas tunes. Day 3 of the sheep block was about finishing the sheep in the background and bringing the dog up to the same level of completion as everything else. The dog was maybe the funnest part to paint. I really love painting animals. It's truly my roots in terms of realism art. I drew animals so much as a kid. I also added in some bush branches and such like around the perimeter of the piece, though I did not film that process. While that dried, I got to work painting the base colors of the other blocks to save myself a little bit of time later. I ended my painting session here for today. Day 4 was all about the finishing touches, shadows, highlights, final corrections, and our favorite flick and tap method that I talked about in my autumn collection video, that in this case is used to create the fallen snow. Finishing this block was the only thing on my agenda for today painting-wise, as I had other tasks to tackle, so I began the next day by working on 2 blocks simultaneously to make up for it.
I should need to go get us some sort of Christmas sprinkle and then sprinkle it all.
I love how you're just trying to make it better, but you're just increasingly making it worse.
Why is it making it worse?
What are you doing?
There's nothing wrong with this. It's a beautiful display.
I
What's
love-
wrong with that?
I
Look
love-
at that. It's a beautiful Christmas display. Can't believe what a jerk you're being.
I would do it differently.
What?
But you have
It's pretty.
It is pretty, but I just mean that you have everything like set up where it's like have I read this? Like everything's like symmetrical.
Yes.
Whereas like if it's okay if I just
5 minutes later.
something like this. What are your thoughts?
Looks better. Fuck you. So you go work for a fucking home store.
I would be good at doing displays.
Christmas decorating shenanigans aside, I got back to my actual job and started placing in the trees, which, as you'll see, I later paint over to change the places I wanted the trees. On the bright side, painting pieces that have a very basic color palette like this one make the process of moving and changing things a lot less time consuming. I didn't show too much of the process of the other block as I got so invested in doing this one that I actually forgot to return to it, and my motivation to work on this block continued into the next day as I started adding details and putting all the little pieces together. Both of these blocks have the same color palette and subject matter, black and white snowy forest. I originally intended for the browns and new tones to make a more obvious appearance, but I ended up sticking with a mostly black, gray, and white palette with both pieces, and it left them feeling very calm and serene, I think. I feel just looking at them brings to mind that silence of a forest in winter when it's dead quiet, but also somehow so loud in a way. I'm not sure if that makes sense to everyone, but I think the silence of nature in winter is one of the most beautiful parts of the season. I don't even know what day we're on at this point, but anyway, with that block mostly done, I'm returning to the one I abandoned a few days ago and getting some trees in there. Then I'm painting over it with a thin layer of white so I can give myself more work when I have to go back in and paint over some of the trees again to help them stand out a little bit better. This will create the illusion of distance, where as the trees get further back, they become lighter and thus look further away. The next stage was the main focal area. I absolutely have a love-hate relationship with painting water. Seriously, I have a lot of respect for artists that can paint it well because it's easily the hardest texture to get right for many, myself included. The more complicated the movement and pattern of the light reflecting off the water is, the less I want to do it. I do love painting still water or like reflections of things within it, like you're seeing me do here. In this case, the river is intended to be rather shallow and partially frozen, and it's more like a stream than a river at this point in the year. As a result, I was able to paint it in a way where the water wasn't extremely obvious, as there's a lot more dirt and debris and branches than water. But the water isn't meant to be the focus of this piece, so I don't really need to draw attention to it anyway. I made so much progress with the details on the first one that it was nearly complete within the first few hours of my session. I had a bit of time left, so I got started on the base work for the next block, a wintry mountainside village.
The weather is just terrible outside today, and I'm feeling really anxious because I was supposed to go out with my family today, and I had a really bad feeling about it, and I trusted my gut and didn't go, but then that leaves me at home worrying about my family members that did go out today. So I'm gonna get to work and paint to distract myself, and hopefully we're gonna get this one done, or to 95% done, which is what I've been doing with the other pieces as well. I've been getting them to near completion and then moving on to the next one.
Continuing on with the mountainside village, I decided I would spend 500 hours painting tiny trees today. Happy Tree King Bob Ross would be shaking his head at me in disappointment for detailing each and every single one, when there was definitely opportunity to loosely throw on some paint in a way that suggested the trees instead.
Let's paint several little happy trees and push. Look at there.
To save myself a heck of a lot of time, but here we are, painstakingly doing it the hard way. And you guessed it, having to fix it later anyway.
I finished for today. I feel very overwhelmed, so I'm gonna stop early for today, but I've realized either the trees are too small or the houses are too big, but one of them has to change because this sizing does not make sense. Thinking I'm gonna try to make just this section larger trees to keep the illusion that these ones are further away and they match these houses better, but these ones need to go because the perspective is off here. But this is as far as I got today.
I originally planned to make all of these houses brown and black so that they looked more like log cabins or wood houses like the one that's in the forefront there. But after seeing images of mountainside villages near up with much more colorful houses, I decided to create even more work for myself by changing them. Because of all the blues and greens present in the rest of the painting, I chose to go with warm tones for the houses. Yellows, reds, oranges, warm browns and beiges. Because I painted a dark color underneath and my warm color paints aren't very opaque, I have to start off with a lighter base to make sure the colors going over top are as vibrant as possible, so I don't have to spend lots of time packing on layer after layer to build the colors up to where I want them. So from this to this. I ended up deciding to scrap the idea of changing the tree sizes and instead adjusted the snow so that it looks like the forest is off in the distance and we're seeing it from over a hill. I hope the visuals help that make sense. It saved me time and effort, and I honestly liked the end result much more than my original idea. While all of these details dried, I moved on to getting started with the 5th block. It was getting very late, as you can see. I have the kitchen light on, and I try not to paint when I have to have lights on to see, as the lights change the colors dramatically, and then I have to fix stuff later because the colors are wrong. So I try to only paint in natural light. I made an exception here because I was getting so close to the deadline and I was trying to make use of all the time I had available in a day. I started to accept that I may not be able to complete all 6 in time, so the next and final full day of painting was spent focusing on finishing the most important of the last 2 pieces, an old red truck with a dog in the back, picking up a tree from a Christmas tree farm, This was the more detailed piece that would take much more time to complete, and it was also the most Christmassy feeling out of the entire collection. As Christmas neared, I knew this was one of the more likely pieces to sell during the holiday season, and I took that into consideration when deciding to make sure it was done in time. When it comes to this collection, it was important for it to feel more wintry than Christmassy. Winter lasts at least 4 months of the year here in Canada, and there's many people that are fans of winter as a whole, but Christmas is often only welcome for a few weeks, and then people are exhausted by it and ready for it to be over long before it's actually here. So Christmas themed pieces are only good for a very specific and narrow period of time before people would put them away until the holiday rolls around again. So I find they're harder to sell as people don't see as much of a use for them as they do a more general piece that would work as decor for a longer period of time. So I knew I only had a small period of time to successfully sell this piece, and I needed it to be in the gallery during peak holiday shopping time period to ensure it doesn't have to wait a year until it can find a home. I did bounce around between the truck and the village throughout the day to try to get the village complete. Because I was so focused on trying to get these done, I didn't film as much of the process as I did with the first half of the blocks. This was all going way too well, so during the final stages of this piece, I had to ruin it by overdoing it on the snow that covers the trees, try to fix it by adding shadowing to the snow and thus ruining it further, and then giving up for the day and shifting my focus to adding the final touches to the village instead. I got up earlier than usual to try to get as much done as I possibly could during the morning hours. I began by painting on the second coat of black edging on all of the pieces I've completed so far before returning to the red truck block to try to stressfully fix the mess I made the night before and add the few final touches needed to complete the piece. I also added a few final touches and details to the others as well. The two forest blocks are extremely similar. The only thing truly differentiating them is that one has a river and the other has a deer. I thought it would be nice to add something special to the river piece, and my mother recommended adding a fox. I intended to add 2 or 3 of them, maybe 4 at most, but given the limited time I had, as well as a frustrating inability to paint tiny details properly today, I decided to scrap the one I was struggling with and stick to doing just one and make sure it looks good. I then turned my attention to the final piece that I was anxiously unsure if I could complete within the 2 hours I had to do it. I've never done a block within such a short period of time, and I was seriously lacking confidence in how it would turn out when it's so rushed. As you can see, the ruin and fix method was still being used despite the fact that I have very little time to be messing around. Like with the previous few days of footage, I didn't film nearly as much with this one as I was so focused on just getting it done and didn't have time to mess around with camera angles and such. Because I wasn't really using reference images much for this piece, like with the trick-or-treaters block from the autumn collection, it made throwing this one together a much faster process, as I didn't have anything I was like directly comparing to and aiming for a perfect recreation of or anything like that. After signing all the pieces front and back, I decided to spend an extra 10 minutes adding a bell to the sheep's neck that, in the end, blended in so well with the sheep itself that I honestly don't think anyone will even notice that tiny detail in the slightest. With that done, I was able to finish up the final block in time to get them all to the gallery as planned. I promise the hair you're seeing on the Swan Lake block is resting on top of it and not painted into it. I just didn't even realize it was there while filming these ending shots, so I apologize for that. I'm home. They're at the gallery. I wish I would have taken videos or photos of them on the shelf at the gallery, but she's gonna be redoing all of the displays and everything for Christmas, so I'll do that then. I have to go back in at some point within the next 2 weeks anyway, so I'll see what I can
get when I'm there, but I'm so relieved these blocks are done. I loved the way they turned out. They actually might be maybe my favorite collection that I've ever done. These were really nice. I was really proud of the way they turned out. The swan one, I was rushed. Obviously, I painted it in 2 hours. It wasn't as good as it could have been, but it was good enough. so I'm fine with that. I felt satisfied with it. I wouldn't have brought it in if I wasn't at least satisfied with the way that it looked. So I think I deserve a good rest today because I'm exhausted. I've been running myself ragged for a few days trying to get this collection done. I'm so relieved that it's done. And hopefully they'll sell and they'll find homes under people's Christmas trees for Christmas or something this year. I have like all this stress that was on my shoulders that is just gone now. So I just sort of want to chill out. But I have work to do. There's so many blocks I'm doing. I have a Christmas commission due by the 20th for a neighbor. Then I have a commission for my chiropractor. So those two are on the table. And then I have several, at least 4 or 5 blocks I want to do of the local area. And I want to get those ones in before Christmas. So within the next 2 weeks. So I have that little set to do. That's 9 blocks. So after those are done, then I'm going to be painting another 6-piece collection of country cats. And I'm so ridiculously excited for it. I don't know why I've never thought of it before, but it's gonna be exactly what it sounds like. It's gonna be cats in country scenes. Maybe wearing cowboy hats. Haven't decided on that yet. And I'll do a video on that one as well when I do that one. It'll probably be the new year. Hopefully these paint with me's are enjoyable to watch, and I will continue to do them along with all of my other content, like my journaling content and my usual vlog based content as well. I'll be continuing with. And in the new year, I'm going to be doing a lot more Japanese culture and language based videos. So look forward to that if that's your thing. But if these videos interest you, if you like these, feel free to sub, and I will keep making more of them. All right, I'm gonna go and do some editing and get some more stuff done and resist the urge to go to bed and play Animal Crossing. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video.